everybody. Good to see you, have you aboard, and we are pleased to meet you again here. We have today the topic on the small and medium-sized businesses in the CRM encounter, and that we have a challenge coming up, such as crisis ante portas, a bit like the famous Cato, Hannibal ante portas. In this case, it's more of a crisis in the approach of 2 years of crisis, and now another one at the door, knocking heavily and with a clear sound. And how are people prepared, and how are vendors prepared to support, for instance, smaller entities and to get people supported in a way? We are extremely happy to have Laurie McCabe from the SMB group here with us as a known expert on the SMB territory. They have published recently a lot on accounting, bookkeeping, and these stuff. But if you go to her blog in detail, you see a lot of things covering the CRM space, especially trends every January for the year, what she is expecting and foreseeing. And lately, the team was on Dreamforce, not Laurie herself. But it's interesting to see that we have some interesting aspects to cover, such as the analyst meeting in Austin, the Dreamforce aspect, and the general question, how organizations are prepared for what is coming up. And I hope that people are better prepared and that governmental institutions are better prepared than they have been prepared for hurricanes. As lately you have suffered bitterly under Ian. Sorry?
You can't really prepare for a hurricane.
No,
not like an earthquake.
It's coming, and the learnings out of Katrina were my hope that that the foreseeable territories have taken precautions.
Yeah, it's easier to prepare for a hurricane than for an earthquake.
Yeah.
You get at least a little bit of warning.
You see it coming, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the seismic warning stations over the earth after several tsunamis, for instance, in Thailand, 20 years ago, roughly, were some indicators that there have been improvements. Now, take this back, crisis warning, pre-warnings, resilience setup for small and medium businesses. Laurie, we are curious a bit to learn about your background. Give us, please, a little feedback on your career, your special interests, and we are happy if we can meet your dog again, because I remember
he is at doggy daycare today. So that's my dirty little secret. If I have to do something and I feel like, she's not going to get enough exercise to be a good girl while I'm on here, I ship her off to doggy daycare.
It's not the Laurie and Riley show.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll tell Layla that you all said hello. Thank you.
Layla. Why that?
Yeah. So anyway, my 2-year-old yellow lab. But anyway, yeah. So I'm happy to be back here and chatting with you all again. It's great to see you. And Laurie McCabe. I am co-founder of SMB Group. We started SMB Group about 10 or 11 years ago, and that's actually about how long since I've known Marshall. I think.
Yeah. A little longer.
Known you for a long time. I was just thinking about that. And we've been through a lot of ups and downs in this industry and everything else together. But so SMB Group, we started basically because of 2 reasons. We definitely felt that the SMB market didn't usually get enough love. A lot of the big firms, as you guys know, focus more on enterprise. And also, both my business partner, Sanjeev, and I had gotten laid off in the Great Recession. And, after looking online and seeing not too many people are hiring, that's kind of what pushed us to start SMB Group. So maybe that's a little, it's not really private, but something inside baseball. And we've been going at it ever since. I love this space. I love small and medium business. I just think it's much more interesting than enterprise. And you have to speak in plain language, which is another thing I really like. There's no room here for a lot of hyperbole and technical jargon, which I think is great. And as I think Ralph said, I have a blog. SMB Group has a wealth of information. My blog is lauriemccabe.com, and the SMB website is smb#gr.com. So if you're looking for any information on SMBs and how they use technology, I hope you visit.
Just type them into the internal chat, then I'll punch them into the public one.
Yeah. It's one of the things that has always kept me coming back to you, Laurie, other than the fact that you're a great pleasure to talk to about any of these topics, is very few people have the focus or the knowledge or the passion for small and medium business that you do. They are the backbone of pretty much every economy. And there's so many of them, but we don't look at them. It's always, when you're talking about vendors, it's the big logos on pages.
Well,
and everyone else.
I think part of the thing is the SMB market is hard, right? For vendors, a lot of vendors. It's very fragmented, very diverse, very usually under-resourced. So it's much easier for most vendors to kind of chase those big, bright, shiny objects, big deals with lots of seats. And that's why I think so many tech vendors, they may start out in small business, but they tend to go up market really quickly, because in a way it's easier. You can throw more and more resources at a large business and still make money as a vendor. But in small business, you have to figure out how to do it right in a really streamlined self-service way, or you're not going to have a business model that works.
In how far do you think that they will see that Toyota moment? Those vendors that solely focus on the enterprise market. Toyota moment.
I'm sorry, I missed your question there, Thomas.
Yeah, Toyota moment meaning like there will be another one that is good enough and good enough and cheaper.
How long does it take them to reach that moment? You mean when they say,
no,
"Hey,
not how long will whether there's a risk that they will see it, or whether
that they're losing their ability to understand and serve smaller businesses? You mean?
Yes.
I think a lot of them don't realize it till it's they've lost it, or they're I mean, I hate to speak about companies though as a person in some ways, because there's always, in every company, there is always that faction that's lobbying to do more in small and medium business that really understands the danger of getting too removed from it. Because even everything is going towards making things more accessible and easier to consume, right? So even for large enterprises. So when you lose the thread with the smaller companies, it's very dangerous, I think, for the business, because you're catering always to the needs of this large business, that large business. So you stop doing that 80% of stuff that everyone needs to do really easily, and you're also moving yourself out of getting new business from new companies that are just getting established, because you don't have that may grow. Some of them grow, right? So, you're not going to be the first on their list once you really go into that large enterprise space and kind of put the blinders on. So I think it's it's a problem. There's not a lot of companies in the industry that start with large enterprise and go down successfully. And there's also a lot of companies that have started with smaller businesses, but have gone up, become fabulously successful, and are now trying to figure out, how do I go back down?
Aren't you the one, forgive me, I may be misremembering, aren't you the one who coined the term the true small business? Small and medium businesses that are the size they are.
Yeah, we may have coined something like that. I don't really remember, but
the idea behind it that some businesses are the size that they want and need to be. And they
that's right. I mean, I'd have to go consult like the U.S. Census Bureau and SBA, but I mean, it's always amazing to me as an analyst. We have a lot of vendors and a lot of analysts that are always asking, well, what's the path for for companies to move up? And yes, there is a good chunk of businesses that are going to grow and expand and become more complex, and they're going to need to move off of whatever kind of entry-level product they have. But on the flip side, there's a lot that don't. They are either lifestyle businesses, or they're maybe artisan businesses, or some service businesses that, we want to keep making more money, but our business model isn't about just exponentially growing, adding more bodies, adding all kinds of new stuff. So it's really important to understand and know and segment, and not get to the point where you're only focusing on businesses that are going to grow at some kind of very fast rate. Because the truth of the matter is, most businesses, even if they do grow, except for some, venture-funded technology kinds of companies, don't grow at exponential rates.
Mm-hmm. And
sadly.
Well, if you take that very important moment, that moment of truth, where you say there is not too much love for the small and medium enterprises, and there should be more in, because it's the seed which will grow if it's taken care of properly.
Intuit is a great example of that, right? So they have continued to focus on small business. They want to, that's where their bread and butter is. They do everything they can to serve them well. And they do also, they have a, QuickBooks Online Advanced now, because they knew they were losing some businesses that are still small, but they are growing, and they need either more functionality, or they're just, they have more transactions, they have more complexity, whatever. But they're not trying to go sell to Coca-Cola. They're not like developing a product at that level. In other words, so you have to kind of think where you want to be and how you want to go from there. Because I like I said before, I think once you go up into very large enterprise, they can suck the life out of everybody in the company, the large businesses, and you can make a lot of money off of them, that's for sure, but they're going to probably pull you away from small business.
What is the main difference in requirements between smaller businesses and enterprises?
Well, the caveat I gave at the beginning is small and medium businesses are all over the place. It's very fragmented. So you have some very, very sophisticated smaller companies that understand technology. They have technology resources. They consider it integral to their business model. And then you have at the other end of the spectrum, small businesses that really just use technology in a very kind of, functional way to support the business, but not really to necessarily advance the business. And then you have everything in between. So there is no, and people hate it when I say this, but that's why you have to do segmentation, because there is no one definition of what the technology needs. Now, just drawing broad brushstrokes, I think what most small businesses need, though, is similar. Okay, so they want something that's pretty easy to use, right? Because they're not going to have a lot. Whether they're like kind of an existing business that's just, you know, day to day going about their business, or they're a growth business. They're small, they're moving, they have to attend to all the chores of the business every day and keep the lights on. So whatever they're going to adopt has to be easy to use, has to be easy to deploy. It has to be easy to try. It has to be easy to buy. And that's why I said before, you know, self-service is really key. Most of them are not going to have a lot of time or money to spend to do all those things, you know, in a prolonged kind of way. You know, I think value and affordability is also key. Again, they're not huge. And unless they're venture backed and they have, you know, somebody writing a lot of checks behind the scenes, they're really looking for affordability and value. And by that, I mean, how long is it going to take me to get up and productive with this solution and start seeing the results the venture is promising me? And I'm just laughing because it's kind of elusive, right? A lot of times you try something and it's just fits and starts before you can really start getting some value from it. And then I think, you know, another thing, and I don't know necessarily if they're always looking for it. Well, one thing they're always looking for is good customer service. So when I do need help me get over this hiccup or this hurdle to using this thing and getting value from it. And then the thing I don't know if they think about as much as they should at the beginning, but what's the partner ecosystem? Because wherever you are on that spectrum of business, you are going to need something else at some point that's going to need to work with whatever you already bought. So I think they do need to be thinking about the partner ecosystem and how easy is it to snap in some other solutions when I need them.
Good point. And if I remember correctly, I think Ralph has a piece that he's writing or has written that will be coming out in the near future that covers a topic similar to that, especially, you know, who you're going to work with to make your CRM system work for you in the small business context. I mean,
right.
You know, big businesses can afford the time and the effort to change things over.
Right.
You're saying, you know, the SMB needs to keep the lights on. They don't have the ability.
Right. And I mean, I'm always advocating if you can hire some, I mean, because in addition to not having technology expertise, a lot of small business people, they don't have business process expertise, let's say in CRM, right? Or in any specific area. You started, I don't know, a karate studio. Now you have 2 or 3 locations. You're growing, you know, you've done pretty well, but you're not probably a marketing expert. So if you can afford to hire somebody to help you kind of streamline that time to value, that's a good thing. But obviously not everybody can.
The typical requirements I was expecting to hear from you are that they at least, if they are, for instance, a mom and pop shop, they need something as a replacement for their typewriter.
Well, I haven't seen too many typewriters, but, you know, I would say that we know that a lot of the really small mom and pops are still using pencil and paper and Excel or spreadsheets or Word docs or something like that.
A database, something integrated, which is in conjunction with the cash system, because a cashier or cash registration they need to pay their taxes and all this to a certain degree. Then something, if they have regular customers or they have to deliver some stuff, it would be useful to have a database. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and depending on, for instance, your karate studio with 3 subsidiaries is already in a size that pen and paper can get really tricky.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You probably have moved beyond that. But, I guess what I'm saying is in most businesses, it is amazing still what gets done with spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So I think, looking at the parts of your business where you could really help your performance, whether it's getting more customers or keeping more of your customers or getting more referrals in this CRM space. How could I do that better? And are there solutions out there to help me do those things better than what I'm doing right now if I'm doing spreadsheets and pencil and paper and email and stuff like that?
I like that point as it comes to the next step. Is there something which is quite cozy, giving you a lot of artificial intelligence advisory, or offers you like Merlin the magician, like in the pivotal solution centuries ago? There was, when you asked for help, not the clip like in Microsoft Office,
Oh yeah, I remember that Clippy.
yeah,
Oh, I hate that little dude.
a little dog or something, other helpies, but they really had at a time where that was not common, that little wizard, Merlin, it was called, who helped you to find the solution for the problem you asked for. It was a bit like a little
Yeah.
help
Well,
instant.
I think, I don't think there's something out there, like if you don't use anything at all, where I haven't seen anything like that where there's a Merlin to tell you, oh, well, you should use this. But I do see more and more vendors building in more in-app support and recommendations and
Okay.
things like that. Like, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but it looks like you already have, so many transactions going on here. You could, with this volume, you could do things easier if you did X or something. And
Yeah.
and AI and machine learning are certainly helping the vendors to do that. Automatic notifications and categorizations and all those kinds of things to kind of help people streamline. I think most of the vendors are starting to build that in. Yeah.
If they start with something for free or something in a freemium model, what would be the first 5 solutions which would come to your mind?
Well, most companies in the small business CRM space, I believe, have a free trial at least. Totally free in perpetuity. I think Zoho has something. I can't remember all the parameters. Like with Zoho CRM, I think it's 3 users or less. And I think HubSpot, one of its products, I think it's HubSpot CRM, is free in perpetuity. But I can't remember who else has something that, we're never going to charge you something.
There are a lot of them.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't expect you to remember all of them. I can't think of any specifically beyond those 2, but I know that there are tons of them.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I think, is worth thinking about, it's like, I can't remember, there was some celebrity recently who makes a lot of money. And he said,
That narrows it down.
yeah, no, I think it was like a big rapper or something. And, some guy was interviewing. He's like, I don't really mind paying my taxes. I don't mind paying all this money taxes because that means I'm making a lot of money. And I think sometimes it's good to think about technology that way. In other words, if the solution helps you make more money,
Yeah.
should you really be thinking like, oh, I just want something I can use for free forever? I think you should be thinking about what can I use that as I grow, I may pay for it or I may pay more for it, but it's actually helping my company perform better, right? And grow. And then you're not going to resent, paying them for this software. Now, if you're not getting any value from it, I don't care if it's free, you shouldn't be using it. So free is, I think free trials are wonderful. And if vendors can offer some kind of functionality free in perpetuity, that's great. But at a certain point, if your business is growing and you're doing more and you want to do more, it's not a bad thing to pay for that.
Yeah. We had the stress point with Jesus and with Christian Knoll. Jesus in the general observation, how things are different in South America, and if they are treated in a different way, which we found out is not like this. They have the same troubles, even some more, and they have also some language issues. Then on the open source side, there are people which have technology affinity and can manage, but the typical smaller shop, like you said, and we know from our own consultancies, they are not too in-depth in technology, so they want something out of the box, up and running, and such as you described, for instance, something in a marketing tool inside where there is an opportunity that you get some prepared stuff, such as adoptable easy mailing lists or adoptable easy email shots or newsletters or something like this. So you get an inspiration and it is easy to adopt and then use it for your own business.
Well, isn't that the reason MailChimp's been so successful? And Intuit acquired them. This was just something really, it had a good name. It has a good name, MailChimp, because it really is, you don't have to be any kind of wizard or marketing genius to figure it out. And I think that's a really important point for a lot of smaller companies, is just that they want something that's going to do what they need them to do. And when things become really complex, it may be great that solution X has this long laundry list of all this functionality if you're a big company. But if you're a little company, you're going to get lost in all those weeds.
Yeah.
But then you will need more stuff. So, you want the growth path, you want the partner ecosystem, you want all that, but you want to be able to start with something digestible for you.
Yeah. So what I thought is, and I take up the point from Thomas, as he was the spiritus rector who was going into the industrial-driven or platform-driven solutions. Last session, we had the CRMKonvos with John Reed. As Vinny was not available, he had to be evacuated for the hurricane.
Right.
And if there
is good, by the way.
Yeah, which is cool. And I was wondering if there's something coming to your mind, or where you see the benefit in such a pre-industry solution, or that, for instance, if you are in retail, if you are in entertainment, if you are in fitness, that you have something prepared in such.
No, absolutely. And I think, so there, again, there's a lot of angles to your question. So in some industries, there's actually you run a dental practice or you run a hair salon, you can buy, and a lot of these people do buy, an end-to-end solution to run their business, which has everything in it from what they need for, managing their appointments and, inventory, to client SMS notifications about appointment reminders, everything in one thing. except maybe, the billing and accounting part of it. So yeah, there's always been a great value in kind of, the thing is like doc in a box, right? If you're setting up a medical practice or a dental practice, people love industry solutions. The flip side is that there's also a lot of companies that don't fit into one of these little neat categories, right? And so they're more going to shop around. And there are a lot of companies now that have kind of industry specific editions and vertical editions. There's also companies like Affinity, I think is the name of the company. They target clients that are small, customers that are small, like maybe financial advisors, but have a very big portfolio of wealth that they're managing. So I can't remember exactly how they frame it, but if you're in a business where you have very high value customers, they really specialize in solutions for that. And so I do think there's a lot of value in that. If you can find one that's a good fit, because it gives you a little bit of a shortcut to getting exactly what you need faster.
Why did we have that much of a hiatus with industry solutions then? Back from the
Well, I
on-premise
think in
world where we
CRM,
had.
maybe you have I look at, SMB more holistically across a lot of functional
Yeah.
areas. And, I mean, Xero just announced, they're partnering with a construction software, and they're blending them together to give construction industries out of the box financials and kind of back end management. And they have a couple other solutions there, and certainly companies like Sage Intact on the financial side have a bunch of verticals. Salesforce has a bunch of verticals, but obviously those are more upmarket for a lot of small businesses.
Just wanted to ask,
Really?
is Salesforce a fit for an SMB?
Well, that's how they started. I just wrote a blog on this after I was at Dreamforce, and I think that once they started with SMB, and once they really caught on, they moved up market really fast. We all know that, and they became the enterprise CRM player.
Yeah.
And since then, they've been through 3 or 4 different iterations of a small business product. They had Desk.com, they had Salesforce IQ. Those are both based on acquisitions. They had Salesforce Essentials, which is still around, and now they have Salesforce Easy. So I think, they're trying to get those things right again for smaller companies. But I hate to use that tired old phrase, but only time will tell. Will they get it right now? We'll have to see.
It's part of a bigger challenge. I mean, we have tier 1 and tier 2 players that are more or less dedicated to the enterprise. All of them, well, there are only that many tier or Fortune 5,000 companies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's called that for a reason. So they all struggle to get down market, to lacking a better word, back into the SMB market. What do you think does it take for these vendors to get there?
Well, they have to figure out now that they have, I always used to say this about IBM, and I'll say it now about Salesforce. They probably have more stuff, more technology in the closet that they can't even remember they have.
Might be true.
I mean, truly.
I applaud that one. That was
they have
cool.
forgotten
Yeah,
more
I
than
mean,
we-
I
than we
always,
ever learned, yeah.
I remember dialing way back in the day when I was an analyst for another company. You'd be talking to somebody from IBM, and it'd be like, well, don't you have that? Wouldn't that fit with what you're doing? They'd be like, oh yeah. I mean, the company just becomes so big. There's so many acquisitions. There's so much organic development. So the real challenge is to distill what is needed for the smaller companies. Again, the 80-20 rule. You've got to develop for that majority, 80%, that are always going to need, these different kinds of features and functions. And then you have to make all the things we talked about before easy to try, easy to buy, easy to use, easy to deploy, all those things, easy to see the value from very quickly. All of those things have to come into play. So whether it's Salesforce or anybody else, that's what has to happen.
Yeah, there are a 3-letter company out of Germany called SAP. They tried it also several times to get something affordable, functional, and proper and easy to use. But even they try hard. At the lower end, they had at least 2 suitable products, but they have not been so popular like their enterprise products. And it is like, sometimes I have the impression they are not really driving it to the point that people are aware of it. The German word is man schämt sich. Yeah?
Okay.
There is a certain shame on business one or on business by design. And there are some cool solutions out there, even in not only solely CRM or customer management, but in the combination, which is something in the platform approach, what I am seeing as beneficial. I need an accounting system. I need a web space or something which helps me to create my website and manage it. I need a little e-commerce platform. I need the customer management and incoming leads management, something like this. So that idea is not wrong, but who delivers on that idea?
Yeah, and again, it gets back to the company at the corporate level and who, how budget, and then the groups, because I'm sure like at SAP, the business one people are very committed to small business.
Absolutely.
But it's like in the greater scheme of SAP, it may be way down, on the priority ladder. And then in terms of the integrated suite approach, in an ideal world, you run as much as you can on one platform because you get all these integration benefits in terms of data and workflow and everything else. But in the real world, companies start, they usually they buy the solutions they need to get their business up and running. Again, that's going to depend on your business, what you buy first. You grow a little. Oh, I also need this. I need this. I need that. Before you know, you've got this hydra with all these heads and nothing talks to each other and nothing integrates. And then you start looking, okay, well, maybe I should go to a SAP Business One or a NetSuite or, a little further upstream, maybe an Acumatica who's got the financials and the CRM and, a lot of the other back office things that you need all in one solution. Or at least I need to make sure I'm in a really great ecosystem where like if I use, select a solution for my back office, I know they have this great big network of partners and there's like a choice of like a half dozen CRMs that I can plug in there and it will integrate. So you need, but sadly, most businesses, we start with a hodgepodge approach and then we have to fix it.
Yeah.
That's the great thing, honestly, though, about Zoho is that, because I know that was on your list to talk about. I mean, number one, they do have, if you stay little, a lot of the stuff is kind of free. Not everything, I don't think, but a lot of it is free in perpetuity. But the other thing is that, in addition to CRM and email marketing and, all those kinds of things in the CRM space, they've got really, I don't think there's one application that they don't have. They've got everything from collaboration and productivity tools to accounting, some HR. So if you're using Zoho, you can always find another Zoho app to plug in there. And I guess the caveat there, though, is that not even all the Zoho apps actually all integrate perfectly with each other, because they've all been developed at different times. But at least it's, at least you can get it for one price. And it's a pretty affordable price. So there's something to think of too.
True.
They're still a little weak on the ERP side, though.
A little what? Right. But,
weak on the
again, when you're talking a small business, you think of, do they have the basic functionality I need for accounting?
They have an inventory, they have books for the accounting, which is not compliant in the whole world, but in your country, for instance, it's working, and in the UK as well.
Right.
They have a lot of stuff, if you get used, that in between the applications, as you said, they have been developed over 25 years.
Yeah, and they have a lot of applications that they integrate with. So if you are not going to give up your QuickBooks, let's say, and a lot of small businesses won't, they integrate with that. Or if you're, you don't want to use, but you want to still use their CRM, and you want to use their Zoho sign, and you want to use their Work Drive for document sharing, and you want to use all these other things, you can integrate that. So, there's no one size fits all solution, but, just trying to mention that there is something out there that's kind of affordable if you think you're going to need a lot of different apps.
And it's not open source, such as they have their own data centers. So from privacy, GDPR, and certain compliances, you are on the safe side, even if you use the free versions. And this is what gives me a strong feeling of there is a lot of love for the small organizations, such as try before you buy, and try for a long term, and with different people and over certain places. You have the time. It is not that you have a counter running in your back and somebody is having the pistol at your head. Now the month is over. All is lost. Yeah?
No, it's a great point, Ralph, because again, especially in a smaller company, you may not really have, you may have some crisis. You may have a hurricane hit you in Naples.
Yeah.
And you just started your free trial of product X, and you are not going to be finishing that free trial this month for sure. So yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said for that.
And even they, like quite some other companies in the same range, their competition is looking upmarket as well. So that's
they're looking upmarket. I feel like there's few companies that don't invent. Intuit again is the outlier. Xero is an outlier because they really stuck to small business. But there really aren't a lot of tech companies that, hey, they're in the business of just growing and growing and growing, and the larger enterprises are kind of irresistible.
There are virtually no big enterprises in New Zealand. That's where Xero comes
Yeah,
from.
but Xero is very big in Australia, New Zealand, and pretty big in the UK, and you're making good inroads here. There's a lot of small businesses everywhere.
I don't remember the number, but it's a staggering number. And every time I look it up, it just kind of blows my mind again.
Yeah, I said there.
Yeah, already. We have them on our website, but it's an incredibly large percentage of businesses that are, 500 people or less, and then. So, and I want to say there's like something like in the US, like 20 something million. And then the biggest chunk in there, believe it or not, is one person businesses, solopreneurs. And so the smaller the size of the company, the more of them there are in any economy. So there's plenty of business out there with small and medium business. No problem about that.
So those millions of organizations or solopreneurs are really in need of something more than Excel, Word, and PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Gmail.
And many of them use
voila.
way more. Yeah. I mean, the beauty of the cloud is that now really anyone can, you don't have to buy a server, you don't have to load up software, you don't have to do any of that stuff anymore. And most of these companies, like we just talked about, they do offer a free trial. And we know even in very small business and solopreneurs, people are using, several to many more different cloud softwares.
Yeah.
They're not just using a personal productivity package and email.
I just did a
They're
chat.
using, if they have a business, they're using email marketing, and maybe they're not using a fully fledged accounting thing, but they're using something like FreshBooks, which is designed for one person kind of solopreneur businesses.
Yeah.
So people are taking advantage of this stuff.
I had a chat on the weekend. Yesterday was official free day in Germany, the date of the union, something like your 4th of July. And it was interesting to hear from an organization with 20 people in a dedicated business as a service organization, having a CRM system, an accounting system, a support system, all three in the cloud, but all separated. And in addition, the usual stuff from Microsoft, as they have bought one day some stuff, and now everybody knows how to operate that. And it's hard to get them off to some open source for free software solution, which is not as usually integrated. If you, for instance, have once the typical accountant example, like I have here in my home, you click and it is opening by standardized, and you cannot fix it without calling the supporter out of a Sage solution that it is going to go into a spreadsheet. It opens by default Excel. And if your bloody installed solution is not operating and behaving like a good Excel sheet, you won't get your extracted data. And just talk to my wife longer than 10 minutes if technology is not working. That is no good.
No, let's face it, we may be closer to self-driving cars than self-driving business applications. And the reason is because there are so many nuances in how we run our.
That is a quote. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many nuances. I mean, obviously there could be construction on the highway, but basically these are the routes, and you're going to map out a route, and those routes are going to be updated, and they're going to be the same for everybody, right?
Yeah.
It's just not that way in business. Probably never will be that way. But I think that one of the things that I've been talking to vendors about is, Marshall, you may be the only one that's done this because you're in the US, but have you ever used TurboTax to do your taxes?
I'm familiar with it. I've used it a couple of times.
So
I have an uncle who's much better.
Yeah, when you go into TurboTax, it doesn't like start telling you, here's all the steps you have to take and the things you have to do. It starts out by asking you a ton of questions. Do you own a house? Have you sold a house? Have you bought a house? Have you gotten married? Have you gotten divorced? Have you had kids? All these questions. So then when it puts you into doing your taxes, you're guided to the areas you need to pay attention to. I don't have any international real estate. So I'm not going to have to answer questions, about that, right?
But you are in the Merlin mode, such as how lovely would it be if you have an artificial intelligence assistant
Exactly.
you in an appropriate, this sounds like a workflow I have to take, but something in between would be really sexy.
Yeah, like why can't we go into a new business application for small business? Obviously,
Yeah.
large enterprise.
You call up Elon
Where
Musk.
it would ask me, and some vendors are starting to do this. Ask me certain things about my business, and what are the top things you want to do first with this software, and then direct you so you get the relevant stuff for your business to accomplish those tasks. And there are vendors starting to do this. I mean, I think Salesforce Easy, they're trying to go that way.
Are they?
But
Honestly.
we need more of that. We need more of the upfront intelligence, so you don't get stuck in stuff you don't want to do, and you can go immediately to what's most meaningful.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I'm really surprised there isn't more of that, because for the longest time, we've been advising vendors that when you try and sell to a customer, you don't start by telling them what features you have. You start by asking them what their pain points
What is your pain?
Yeah.
What do you need?
So it's a question of automating that.
Where are your time thieves? Yeah.
It's a question of automating that. And, again, I think if you just go use TurboTax, you kind of get the idea. Automating so that the customer, you get directed to the most relevant functionality so you can get the quickest results.
By chance, have you fallen over somebody who presented you Salesforce Easy on Dreamforce?
I am waiting for my demo of that. I'm going to be having that soon, but I've had several conversations with Chris Billmar, who's leading that effort at Salesforce.
It will be very interesting to see how he can be convinced to put in some genie and some standardized, not vectors, but sectors, branches.
I don't think you have to convince Chris, and I don't want to speak for him. I think it's a question of, this is now in the early going. They've got to they want to get the basics right of what's in the initial offering and really listen to these early customers to start. But clearly everybody knows that, hey, figuring out how to best embed some of these, whether it's Genie or if you're another company, something else, that's going to be important, right?
Yeah, but just think and use the brain of the velocity Schmeier and get him to downsize his thinking for the small ones. That's a plan.
And again, you never have to convince the people running these initiatives of that. They're all in, and you should have him. I would recommend you should have him on. He's a good guy. But it's just it's hard. It's hard to do. I talked to a vendor once. This was not a CRM vendor, but I think it was a vendor in the collaboration space, and they said, how do you delight the maximum amount of people with the minimum amount of functionality? And that's really the equation, right? Yeah. To satisfy the needs of 80% of small businesses in retail, what's the basic set of functionality I have to give them to satisfy most of their needs? And it's really hard to do. It's easy to say, but it's hard to do. It's easier to just keep throwing stuff in the pot.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's not overgeneralizing, but small, medium businesses don't need the really cool feature that winds up being marketed every quarter. They need something that works first.
Well, they don't need necessarily the really cool feature, but some of them may need the really cool feature. It depends on what that really cool feature is. And sometimes that really cool feature is what makes the vendor so enormously sticky and successful that you're never going to leave. And my example here is the iWatch and the iPhone. So I've had an iPhone since iPhones came out. And then a few years ago, I got the watch. And honestly, before I got the watch, my son's like, go to Android. Everybody's like, we pay a premium for the iPhone. Well, the Find My Phone feature on my iWatch, I'll probably now never leave the iPhone, right? Because I always want to be able to find my phone, and I probably use it 3 or 4
In
times.
your car one day, yeah?
Now, is this something that I would ever have even thought, I must have that cool kind of feature? No. But sometimes that cool feature, if it's easy to use and you can see immediate value from it, that's the thing that says, yeah, that's why I have to go with that or stick with that or whatever.
Good point.
And I'd say that is the same for the big companies. They just want, at the end, they just want something that works without putting much effort into it. So whether this is the cool feature or not, it's probably cool that it works meanwhile. Sad as it sounds. Sad
And I
as
think
that.
part of the problem too in this whole business application space is that, we always are pushing the vendors to do things, make it easier and faster and all that, and that's good. But maybe we also need to help the customer expectations that, it isn't going to be like you're going to turn it on like your phone and it's all going to kind of magically work for you pretty well, right? Without thinking too much about it. You do really have to start with, what do I want to do here with this? Why am I getting this software? What do I want to do with it? And you do need to put some thought into that, or you're not going to get that much value out.
Looking at the time and looking at the clash that we might see between the big vendors trying to scale down, or attempting, doing their scaling down, and the other vendors scaling up somewhat. Looking at the SMB vendors, what would you recommend them not to do in order to keep
Well,
up
I'd love to
with the
see the
disruption
ones
from
that are
below?
personally, because I'm an SMB. I'd like to see like the HubSpots and the Mondays and Pipe Drives and the other companies that kind of we're SMB. I like to see them stick to SMB. I think that alone is a huge advantage to them in the SMB market, because again, they're building everything more for that, or for a more self-service model, and they're not getting pulled off into, Salesforce showed some absolutely phenomenal demos of like Ford and L'Oreal, and they're doing some amazing things. But I think the Ford person said something like, "Yeah, we have an army of people on this." And that's, for SMB, there's never going to be an army. So I'd like to see the ones that are in SMB stick with SMB. I think that'd be the best thing for the customers in SMB.
It's I, me, and myself. And these 3 have to do the job.
Yeah,
An
absolutely.
army of person.
Yeah, sometimes schizophrenia is helping, then you have at least one more, yeah?
Yeah.
But that couldn't be the solution of the challenge. So it is a wise move to keep the shoemaker with his ability and for a certain time in that market and do it right. So he will get a lot of positive karma and a lot of love. And by this, he makes his money. Yeah. And the customers, as you put it, they are the sticky component, the glue, which is then keeping things together.
And there's a huge market there. So, the challenge is to the vendors, satisfy the needs of these small and medium businesses, and you will be successful.
What for closing words? Brilliant.
And just on the
But
second,
I'm biased. I'm an SMB person all the way.
well, that's why we had you here.
Well,
Thanks
one
a-
of the reasons.
Laurie,
It
thank you
was
very
about
much.
SMBs,
Well,
right?
thanks. I really enjoyed speaking with you as always.
Always a pleasure.
Always a
And
pleasure
of course,
here too.
there will be other opportunities
Yeah.
because, well, damn, you're good at this.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of the day or evening or wherever you're at today,
All
Same
over
to
the
you.
place.
and hope to talk to you soon.
Goodbye
Bye.
to the audience. Going
We go
backstage. Bye.
backstage.